I chose the best drawing to model in Solid Edge 3D CAD software suite. So I modelled it out and then I machined it out on the Boxford CNC router.
Cool.
Let's look at the components. We have 2 tyres, 4 wheels, 2 axles, 2 spur gears, 3 pinion gears, PVC tube, 4 screws, gearbox, and a high performance downforce racer motor. And let's look at the tools we're going to be using. Hookup wire, super glue, hammer, wire strippers, cutting knife, ruler, Phillips head screwdriver, some soldering paste, solder, a brush, and a soldering iron. So I've got parts that I've machined out. We have a side profile. We've actually got 2 side profiles. We've got a base, front wing, and a back wing. Just going to take the side profiles, place them in the slot, push them as far as you can backwards into those slots. Next thing, a bit of super glue, and we're just going to apply a few beads of glue along the side. Remember, with super glue, a little bit is enough. Next thing is we take our front wing and we place it into the slots. Same thing as before, bit of super glue, straight over the side. Remember again, not a lot, a little bit. We're going to be taking our gearbox and putting it into place. It fits in between the side profiles. We just need to line that up on the side. Make sure that when you're doing that your gearbox is running straight. Simply, we take a screw, put it in a Phillips head, and we're going to be screwing it down like so. You don't need pilot holes because it screws perfectly into the slightly expanded PVC. Take our motor, fold out the 2 electrical tabs like so. Come over to the vise and just nip it up in the vise so it's hanging onto the armature. Take your hookup wire, measure 180 millimeters, cut that off. Measure the second one out, exactly the same length, and cut that off as well. We're going to strip 5 millimeters off the end of our hookup wire on both pieces. On the other end, we're going to strip off 10 millimeters. Take it over with the 5 millimeter section that you've stripped, feed it through the electrical tab, and fold it back over. Next, we're going to solder. Take the flux paste and the brush, put a small amount of flux paste over the end of the electrical tabs. That will help the solder to flow. Take the soldering iron and now your solder. Solder both electrical tabs on the motor. Let's attach our motor to the pinion gear. We take our pinion gear, place it on the table, place the armature in the middle of the pinion gear and tap on the very end of the motor. Tap it all the way through so it's running flush to the end of the pinion gear. Then take it back over to your vise and then tap it a few more times so the armature sticks out about 2 millimeters. Before we place the motor into the gearbox, make sure that the electrical tab is pushed down in the opposite direction. That'll stop any short circuiting with the gearbox. We then place it into the gearbox itself, making sure that that electrical tab folded forward is facing to the base. Then we're going to be taking a small machine screw, placing it into position, and then screwing it in with our Phillips head screwdriver. So I can still move backwards and forwards. We're going to take the axle and place it into the spur gear, and then hammer it through. And we're just going to tap that through. Take 2 wheels, place them on the bench, and a hammer. Take the axle with the spur gear and tap it down through, like so. Then, in the axle hole in the back, just feed it directly through. If it doesn't fit, just take the motor, move it forward in the slot so it fits into position. To tighten the motor, put your fingers on the inside of the wheel and pop out the rim. Place it into position, move your motor into position, take your Phillips head screwdriver and tighten up the 2 machine screws. It's very important at this stage when we're tightening up that this spur gear isn't too tight against our pinion, otherwise there's too much friction and it won't spin. Just right. Time to cut our PVC pipe. We're going to be cutting it into 3 lengths of 25mm. Take it next to your rule, mark off 3 lengths of 25mm. Simply get your cutting knife, place it over one of those lines that you've just marked out and just roll it backwards and forwards. Once you've cut through a small amount, it should just shear off by itself. Place the tube over the end of the axle. Take your wheel, place it into position. What you're going to be doing is just pushing both your hands together. If it's too loose, it's very easy to fix. Just place your fingers over your spur gear, very close to your axle, and your fingers on the back wheel, and just give it a bit of a push. Let's attach our front wheels. Take our axle, place it over the front wheel, tap it into position. Then place your plastic tube over the axle itself, through the hole, then another tube, and then take the wheel, place it over the edge, just hitting the middle of the rim to get that into position. Last thing is the back wing. I'm going to be using some super glue again, placing the super glue over the 2 parts where the back wing is going to be attached. 2 tabs, lining up our back wing into position, positioning it equally on both sides, estimating and just pressing it down into position. Last step is to attach the tyres. Take off the plastic tyres and place on the rubber tyres, which will give you more friction.